Hi, it's Tash from Foxes and Brown Bears Tarot, and today I thought I'd actually start a tag. So I know it's ambitious, but I'm going to give it a go. So I just did the VR to Jen's Balance Tarot about the different elements, and in doing that I started really thinking about emotions and how different decks will appeal to different emotions. And so that took me back to theory of emotion. So I have studied psychology, so yeah, just went down the rabbit hole of thought and started thinking about researcher Paul Ekman. Now, Paul Ekman did this fairly groundbreaking research on emotion where he said that emotions could really be broken down to 6 core emotions. And the way he figured this out is he got people all around the world to identify the emotions in particular photographs of people. And he found that universally according to research, so I'm sure there were exceptions, but he found that pretty much every culture would clearly differentiate the emotions of anger, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, and surprise. So he saw these as the core emotions, and everything else is a secondary emotion. So it's a mix of 2 or more of those primary emotions. Now, there has been subsequent research which suggests that there are actually, in fact, only 4 primary emotions. And this was done by Rachel Jack and co. in 2014. But for the purposes of this particular tag, I'm going to focus on the 6 key emotions. And what I thought would be interesting would be to think about what decks we would go to if we felt a particular way. All right, so I'm going to start with anger. Okay, so this would be the case where I'm super angry one day, I need to do a reading. What deck would probably dampen my anger at that point? Because the idea is you can choose decks that will either heighten an emotion or help you to explore that emotion, or a deck that would help to dampen or potentially reduce, eliminate that emotion. Okay, so with anger, I don't like feeling angry, so I would pick a deck that, in this case, would be calming. And so I picked the Golden Tarot by Cat Black. And the reason for that is because, first of all, it's really beautiful. So it'd be quite hard to remain angry when you're looking at something truly beautiful. It also just has a very, very calming energy. Super calming energy. And it's also really easy to read because when you're angry, one thing you're lacking is patience. And so you're not going to reach for a deck that requires too much analysis, too much thoughts, too much trying to delve into intuition and that. You actually just want something that's super easy, that will just give you the message, and that is calming. And so that is for anger. That's why I chose Cat Black's The Golden Tarot. Now for disgust. Disgust is an interesting one because I interpreted this as, usually I'm disgusted with the way people act. And so if I'm going to be super disgusted with how people have behaved that day, then I'm not going to want any reminders of people. And so for that reason, I have gone with the Animal Totem Tarot. And the reason I chose this one instead of a more fluffy animal deck is because it will still give very, very accurate, very hardcore messages. It is a very tell it as it is deck. So this one's a really confronting card. And so it will still give me the message I need. It won't lie to me. It won't necessarily give me a hug. But what it will do is not remind me of people. And in that way, it will potentially dampen some of the disgust and also give me trust again. Because I find that going back to nature tends to remind you of what's really important. And so you're more likely to be able to let go of that disgust. So yeah, so that's the Animal Totem Tarot by Lisa Robertson, illustrated by Eugene Smith. Now, fear is an interesting one. So you could interpret this as anxiety, stress as well. Now, you definitely don't want to necessarily feel that fear. And so I've gone with dampening the emotion. And for this, I've chosen the Everyday Enchantment Tarot by Poppy Palin. And the reason for my choice is because this is a very grounding deck. And when I'm anxious, I want something that grounds me in the real world, in the everyday world. I want something to just get focused on. And even this, like if you're super anxious and you just do some cleaning, it does make you feel that little bit better. And even hard cards are still very rooted in the everyday. And I've definitely experienced that, particularly the whole COVID-19, that underlying anxiety. I have found such comfort in the everyday, in the familiar. So I've been rewatching shows I've seen before, rereading books I've read before. And I think just having a deck that just grounds you in the real world again is really useful. That one might be depressing for COVID because it reminds you of what we can't do. But besides that, it is a beautiful deck for that. And I think it's also calming in a sense. It does provide comfort in very everyday positive messages. And so because even the hard cards still provide some level of comfort. And another reason I've picked this deck is because I use this deck for my gratitude practice. And so I pick a card every day and try and find something within that card that reminds me of something I'm grateful for. And I think when you're fearful or anxious, that's a really good thing to do. Gratitude has been shown to alleviate anxiety. So that's my everyday enchantment for fear. All right, fourth emotion is happiness. Now, very strangely, I found this one the hardest, which is really strange. I was like, how can I not think of a deck I'd go to if I'm happy? And then I suddenly realized, well, maybe it's because when I'm super happy, I probably don't feel in need for reading. But I eventually decided on my Everyday Witch Tarot. And I picked this one because it is vibrant colors. It's quite positive. I find it very positive. So what that's going to do is it's going to maintain my mood. So there's nothing in this deck that's going to depress me. And because I'm already in a happy mood, I'm just going to see the positives in these colors, the joy in some of these images. And I just think everyone's they seem quite happy and energetic. And yes, there's still the hard cards, but I feel they're done in a very positive manner. So it's still very energetic, very proactive, and definitely when you're happy, you want to draw on that energy and you want to act proactively. So that's the Everyday Witch by Deborah Blake, illustrated by Elizabeth Elba, and that is my happiness deck. Now my others, which I'll just grab here. Next one is sadness. Now for sadness, I decided that you want something to lift your spirits. So you don't want anything too complicated. You don't want anything that requires a lot of energy, because when you're sad, you actually don't have a lot of energy. You just sort of want to withdraw. And so you want something simple, colorful, bright, something that makes you feel happy. And so I picked the Affirmators Tarot. And this is beautiful. So this I picked just because of the bright colors and the very sweet images. So there's no way you can look at these pictures and maintain a bad mood, or at the very least, it's not going to make you feel worse. It's going to give you some sort of comfort. I mean, look at that. I know. I love that Ace of Cups. So cute. So yes, so even the sad cards, you see the Five of Cups, it's still sweet. It's gentle energy. And so that is why, if I were sad, I would go to my Affirmators Tarot. And finally, if the final one is surprise. Now this is a tricky one. And the way I thought about surprise is if it's a pleasant surprise, because otherwise it would be going into things like disgust and anger and things like that. So the way I view surprise as is that there's a level of curiosity. And so you think, wow, well, that's a great thing to happen. And I wonder why that happened. Or I'm super curious about what happened and how it happened. And so I thought that you want a deck that has a little bit more to explore, but something that still maintains that positive mood. And so I decided to go with the Chrysalis Tarot by Holly Sierra and Tony Brooks. And the reason I picked this one is because there is a bit more depth to this one. It's definitely got its own system, which means it lends itself to some curious exploration. It's a great one for a deep dive. And it really has a lot to contemplate, has hidden meanings, but the colors and the vibrancy of it would definitely maintain, as I said, that positive mood. So even the tower is still an interesting, evocative image that's not that depressing. And so it's not going to lead to shock. You're going to maintain that curious surprise. All right, so that's the Chrysalis Tarot for surprise. All right, so I'd love to hear what other people's choices are. Let me know if you think that's an interesting tag to do. If you find it difficult to do the 6 emotions, you can do the truncated 4 emotions. And the 4 emotions would be anger, fear, happiness, and sadness. And yes, let me know how you go. I look forward to seeing people's responses. Take care.